Suicide Squad is the third film in the current DC series. It was directed by David Ayer and it stars a huge ensemble cast including Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Jared Leto, a whole bunch of people that, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know who's in this movie because of the marketing campaign. So this movie follows on from Batman vs Superman, and the basic premise is that the government are concerned that if another supervillain with the powers of Superman should try and take over the world, they're going to need a bunch of metahumans or people with superpowers to try and stop them. Unfortunately, the only people with superpowers that they have access to are incarcerated. They're supervillains themselves. So they assemble them into a group called Task Force X, put explosive devices in their necks and say, hey, if you guys try and escape, we're going to blow your heads off, and send them out on a mission to stop a supervillain. Supervillains! This movie's full of supervillains! Now, I was really looking forward to this flick, and upon first reviews that I read, they were actually really favourable. I was reading a lot of good stuff. And then yesterday morning I woke up to the news that apparently the whole world hates the movie, and I did not know what to expect. On one hand, great reviews. On the other hand, this movie sucks. People are talking about the crappy score it got on Rotten Tomatoes, all this sort of stuff, so wow, I went in with a really open mind and low expectations because I thought, okay, this could go either way. Now, ordinarily with film reviews, I go into what I liked about the movie and then I say what I didn't like about it. This time around, I'm going to do it a little bit differently, mainly because this movie had a lot of flaws, but at the same time, I was massively entertained. So as far as the things I didn't like about the movie, mainly the editing. And it was exactly the same thing with Batman vs Superman. There were a lot of scenes that were just really disjointed. It felt quite choppy at the start, particularly. Like, for instance, there was one scene where you have this nighttime scene of destruction in the city, in Midway City where it takes place. And then all of a sudden it's daytime and you're in like a medical camp, and it was just jarring. There was no sort of transition from one scene to the other. And then there were a few other scenes that just felt kind of tacked on. Like, this movie was quite famous for having done a lot of reshoots down the track. And I did feel as though some of the scenes just kind of felt a little out of place here and there. Some of the dialogue between characters seemed a little disjointed, that sort of thing. So yeah, when it came down to it, the editing was a little bit subpar. Now, one thing I'm hoping, because Batman vs Superman originally suffered from the same thing, but then of course they brought out the Ultimate Edition on Blu-ray, where there was a half hour included in the film that wasn't there before, and it made for a much smoother flowing film. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe they might do the same thing with this. My other big gripe was the villain. Now, you know, in any sort of action movie or comic book movie, you need a decent villain. This movie had one of the worst villains I've ever seen. Now, I can't divulge who it is because it's sort of getting into spoiler territory, but I was really disappointed. And aside from that, the villain is working on this big super weapon and they keep saying, you know, I need this for my weapon and stuff like that. But they never actually say what the weapon is. And I kind of felt that was really clumsy. You don't find out till much later on what this weapon actually does, but you know, it might have actually been good to know that first off so we can actually kind of feel there's some sort of threat or some sort of danger rather than just not knowing what the heck they're doing. And another thing that really bugged me, and I guess it came down to the editing as well, and I sort of felt maybe there was a deleted scene that might explain it, but towards the end there's a character who is captured by the villain and sort of strung up and has tentacles around this person, that sort of thing. And you're kind of thinking, oh, I wonder what's going to happen to them because they were an important character. Eventually, a little bit later on, you see this character just emerge from out of nowhere and they're just completely unscathed and fine and everything's back to normal with them. And it was kind of like, what actually happened? But look, realistically, those are probably my only real issues with the film. And having said that, the film had a lot going for it. And the main thing was the cast and the characters. They were so entertaining, especially Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Man, she stole the show. She was brilliant. And that was one thing, you know, very early on when they released those first pictures of the Joker, like, man, I was really skeptical. I looked at that picture, you know, with the grill and the tattoos and everything, and I was like, oh my god, what are they doing? Like, this is one of the most iconic villains in literature, comic book, film history, and you guys have turned him into this? And then when they showed us Harley Quinn, I was like, not much better. But I tell you what, in the context of the film and everything, they worked. They were fantastic, and I cannot wait. I hope one day they're going to do a standalone Batman film with Joker and Harley in it, because, yeah, they were absolutely phenomenal. So going through the list of characters in the film, okay, so Will Smith as Deadshot, the world's greatest hitman. He was, typical charismatic Will Smith, and I like the way they wrote the character. He had a lot of depth to him, and, quite a tender backstory, that sort of thing. And, yeah, I really liked him. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Harley has long been one of my favorite Batman characters, and you don't see enough in the trailer, which is a good thing, really, of just how accurately she nailed that character. She freaking was the Harley Quinn from the TV series. And it all came down to, her mannerisms, just things like walking into a building and just turning around and giving everyone a bow, or just randomly hugging and kissing people, things like that. And the voice, everything about her was just bang on. You just adored her, but at the same time she was kind of terrifying because she was so batshit insane. Jay Hernandez as Diablo, I thought he was really good. His character was really interesting in as much as he didn't want to be using his powers until it sort of came down to it, and yeah, I really dug what they did with him. Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang, I'm kind of on the fence about him. Look, he was okay, but I just felt they could have used his character a lot more effectively. He didn't really have much to do in the film. Adewale Akinnuoye, the guy who played Killer Croc. He was amazing. I really loved seeing Killer Croc coming to life like that on the screen. I've always loved him as a Batman villain, and I love the fact that they actually used practical makeup instead of like a CG character. It was freaking awesome, and everything about him, his voice, his mannerisms, he was Killer Croc. Cara Delevingne as June Moon / Enchantress. She started off pretty good. I actually was digging her performance, and yeah, I actually thought she was quite a good actress, but her character later on in the flick, I don't know, she kind of almost turned into a caricature of herself in a way, and I didn't like how she ended up. Adam Beach as Slipknot, can't really say too much there. He was good. His character was used effectively, I guess you could say. Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, I thought he did a great job. His character had quite a good emotional range, so I thought he was quite well written, and yeah, the actor did a great job of portraying him. And yeah, I thought the whole cast together just had a really good chemistry. Aside from that, I really loved the music in the film. The score itself was great. There was a really memorable theme that was running through it, and the use of songs was mostly good. There were a couple of times I thought the songs kind of pulled me out of the film a little bit, particularly use of an Eminem song during a scene, which I felt a little bit out of place, but for the most part they got it right. And aside from that, the cinematography, there was some really, really nice shots in there. If you recall, in the trailer there's a shot with Joker and Harley in some kind of liquid with colors swirling around, that sort of thing, and I was sort of wondering what was going to be happening there, and yeah, it was an amazing scene. There was some really, really nice shots in the film, and it just sort of, yeah, added another level to it. So look, at the end of the day, I go to the movies to be entertained, and I was definitely entertained. We had the benefit of seeing it at a midnight screening last night where there were hundreds of hardcore fans, everyone dressed as Joker and Harley and all that sort of stuff, and it just really added to the atmosphere of it, and yeah, it was a great time. So while it might not be the greatest movie in the world, it was definitely entertaining and well worth seeing. If anything, just for the cast, if anything, just for Margot Robbie. She was so much fun. She had great dialogue. There was a lot of great dialogue between the characters. It wasn't quite on a Guardians of the Galaxy level of fun, but definitely entertaining. So even though it suffered from second-rate editing and a really lame villain, I'm going to give Suicide Squad a 7.5 out of 10. So since the whole world is divided as to whether or not they liked Suicide Squad, let me know what you guys thought of it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Like I said, not the best movie, but definitely passable entertainment. So drop me some comments either here or on Facebook. All my social media links are in the description because I like to talk about movies and I would love to talk about movies with you. See you next time.
Hey you there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Click subscribe. You see the big word up the top that says subscribe? Well, click on it! Click on it now! Do it! Yeah!